the conflicting realities of India are shaped by the tensions between binary power structures like inclusion and exclusion, secularism and communalism, tradition and modernity. In different tensions are created in the social and cultural sphere of India that results in the contradiction which makes India under the patina. There was a constant inquiry from many of my friends, what do you mean by the topic India under the patina? In Malayalam we say Klavu Pidikia. So we are searching for the India beyond the patina. We are unmasking the realities of India. So to begin with, we have three excellent speakers here with us. And to begin with, we'll unmask the topic first. So I want to know about the perception, the speaker's perception of this metaphorical topic. So I think we'll begin from Megha. Megha, so please speak about your perception of India under patina, and then we'll move on to all the speakers.
Okay. Can everyone hear me? Yeah? Okay. So I think for me, again, like you mentioned, I today morning went and asked my mother, what is the Malayalam equivalent to this? She was like, yeah, it means klavu. And she gave me this example. She showed me a vessel. I the klavu pidicha patra. I was like, okay, great. In this context, though, a patina would literally mean this layer that is the spectrum of narratives that we have that projects this image that the country is great. We've gone to the moon, we've won a lot of sports awards, all of this is happening while brushing aside everything that is underneath it, all the socio-political issues that we have, whether it's gender violence, caste, or all the gaping holes in the Indian justice system. And I don't understand if it has more to do with general perception or what we want to show to the West, because I think that Mr. Vinod would best help everyone understand what it's like when you go to a conference. I remember reading on the Caravan where you had spoken about this conference in London about media freedom, and you spoke your truth, but you were accused of spreading misinformation. So there is this, at least patina here for me would mean how people in power want to project the image of India as being a certain way, while brushing aside the voices of the oppressed.
So I think we'll come to Vinod sir. Can you please convey your perception of India as a journalist who has a long experience of critiquing the power structures of India? So how do you see this particular topic?
See, clearly, we take pride in the fact that we are the world's largest democracy, and which in some sense is true, that there are periodical elections, and we respect the outcome of it. And to the extent that I think, some of the think tanks in this space call, that we are an elected autocracy. That's a new term that is given for India. On the other side, many of us could speak from multiple perspectives on this, and from a young person, from a journalist, from a lawyer, from a politician. All of them have their sides of how, what the promise is and what the reality is, and what the packaging is and what the goods really is. So I think all of us have different versions of that. These days I sometimes have to start by saluting the organizers who invite me for these kind of sessions. I face 10 sedition cases, and all these 10 sedition cases are in different parts of the country. Technically, you are inviting a person who is in the wrong of the law, at least, or of the government, or those who booked me in sedition cases. But then when I think about it, it's all for the journalism that I have done, or anything that I have supervised as an editor. And this is what you have done is what is in the rule book of what a journalist should do. I had the privilege to study in some of the best schools in journalism, even Columbia Journalism School, which administers the Pulitzer Prize. So all the faculties and the professors who would want you to perform when you are an editor or a reporter, follow a lead, do a story, publish it, put your weight behind it, and defend it. That's all what we have done. What in 450 years, how the publishing industry or the journalism industry has been sort of working around, putting the weight behind telling truth and fighting for justice in each one's lives. But the space in India has drastically come down. Of course, we have had sedition cases in the past too, but the alarming rate at which UAPA or sedition or any of this, what we can call weaponizing law, like these laws existed. Of course, there was no reason for these laws, the British crafted laws to exist in the rule book. There's Official Secret Act, and many of that, I think we have seen multiple generations of journalists going through it. But the alarming rate at which all these are getting used these days, institutions killed, destroyed, the business model being sort of destroyed, publishers being threatened, editors being threatened, personally attacked. In fact, Gauri Lankesh was a very good friend of mine, and 4 or 5 days before she was killed, we were speaking on the phone. And in fact, there was even a joke when Modi came to power that we happened to be in Goa for a meeting, and then we were sitting adjacent to a coconut tree, and a coconut fell down, and she was like, "What a disgraceful end for a journalist if a coconut is the cause of the death." So in some sense, those of us who kind of put our lives on the firing line behind a story, and of the investigative stories or the kind of stories that needs to be told because they are good stories, we realize from our perspective that the promise or the packaging is very, very different from what we feel at a field level, at an existential level. And that's a very different India. And that's an India which has certainly become autocratic. That's on the way of being fascistic. But the sad part is also that it's not just India. It's most of the democracies that we have known or have taken pride in the fact that they were democracy, their first democracy, like the United States, for instance, or democracies who were celebrating that they're democracies from the Muslim world, like Turkey or Philippines, any of that. Most of these countries now have autocratic leaders who are collectively bringing down what has been the promise for the people in the 20th century.
So now, as we know, from the largest democracy of the world as it claims to be, we are speaking about the India under this superficial surface level patina. And since we have a media person who has more than 10 sedition cases, now we will move on to the next speaker in this Bidrohi panel, as he would like to term that. From this Bidrohi panel, there is a person who has written immensely about, studied and written about the Red Corridor and the northeastern states of India. He has seen the other face of India. So we'll listen to him. Sir, please share your perception about the India under patina.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a crowdfunding appeal for our friend Vinod. So we have to bail him out 10 times, I imagine. So this is an official crowdfunding appeal to all of us. And I'm sure MBIFL will pitch in as well. A column or two, sponsorship of the Wayanad Festival. We live in hope. But the thing, I'm beginning with a bit of facetiousness. You'll forgive me because this subject can get very dark very quickly. And I think we need to retain a sense of humanity and a sense of purpose. So I'll crack another of my silly jokes and move on from there. I sometimes think when I look at what we do for a living, and as chroniclers, as journalists, as writers, poets, performance artists, and all of us in our own way, is to speak truth to power. Only that sometimes I think that the spin we see is so much on everything that I sometimes think that the Earth's axis is going to change, from time to time. So that was my PJ for the evening, for the session. But that leads me directly, actually, to Beyond the Patina. I come at it a little differently, in the sense that I've been a card-carrying member of the mainstream media for many decades before. I'm a direct beneficiary of India's liberalization process. I reported on it. I edited stories on it. When 1991 happened, I was business editor at India Today magazine. So I actually participated, if you will, in India's good news story after years of. So I've seen where we were, and since 1991, I actively participated in the project of saying, okay, we have laws, we have liberalization, let's see where we go from here. What I did realize as I was working through that, ladies and gentlemen, is that what I found that there was a disconnect developing, and that's something that Megha speaks to, that's something that Vinod has spent many years gathering his sedition cases, precisely because of this writing about things that we're disconnected from. And what I sensed through the 90s and through a bit of the 2000s is that we were getting increasingly more disconnected from, I hate to use the word other India because here I won't really go, I'll stress on the word Patina, essentially because all Indias are true. So there is this liberalized India, there is this sort of productive, aspirational India, there is this benefited India, if you will, but I saw that 800 million people were not part of the Good News Party. And I thought that if you were looking to be this superpower, and the narrative for the next superpower had already begun then, in the early 90s, some of you will recall. And I just said, wouldn't it be so nice if all of us came along, if all of us, all Indians were invited to this party? And I think I reached a tipping point in 2002. I won't add to the sedition cases that Vinod will have by taking names here. You're very welcome. I will too at some point. But that for me was a tipping point because I realized that I cannot any longer be part of the media that I had so loved and cherished and given half my life to, because it didn't operate with the rules that we were trained to operate within. Speak truth to power, be diligent, pursue a story, do not give up, and just tell truth as much of it as you can. So I decided to move away from this. I actually walked off from my job in 2002 and I just went lateral, where I decided that the stories that I thought needed telling, which I thought were not being given enough attention, not being given enough mind space, I thought that I would pursue in my own small way, contribute to that conversation, that narrative, that dialogue. So I started writing books, and one of so I never gave up being a journalist. I started writing books, I started writing columns, and then I drifted into this space deliberately. For instance, you will know that in the mid-2000s, the big news was what was called the Maoist rebellion. The greatest internal security threat to the country. And I do have a tag, by the way. Evidently, I'm an urban Naxal, but we'll come to that later. No sedition case, though. I just have a T-shirt that says urban Naxal. When I was talking about these people who were picking up weapons with a 99% chance of leading very short lives thereafter, I decided to tap not into the ideology, but to the anger, or to the dispossession, the disconnectedness with the grand India party that I was attending every day of my life. And that's what drove me to tell these sort of, I won't say counter narratives, but other narratives, necessary narratives. And that's how I look at the patina, that for me, beyond the shine is the non-shine. And I think these are important too. So we're not rebelling, we're just talking about other aspects of the country or other aspects of the people that we need to be talking about. So I went headlong into that. Then the other thing I realized that I was, which was disconnected in India, besides Kashmir, was northeastern India. It was as if it was out of sight and out of mind. And I even I came up with a term which I use called mall stupor. You realize that the malls began to mushroom in the 1990s. So I was trying to come up with an expression as to saying, how do I describe this miasma, this patina that we live in? So I came up with a hyphenated word, mall stupor, to describe what we were living in. So decidedly to go beyond the patina was a personal choice that I made, and then that drove my writing, my discussions, my thought process, which continue to this day. So northeastern India, Kashmir, the Maoist rebellion, aspects of business and human rights. We talk about development, but we don't talk about the conflation of human rights or the convergence of business and human rights, where 1 million ton a year steel plant can displace 300 villages, and what happens to them? You know, sort of the drag and drop of liberalization, the drag and drop of prosperity is a very sad drag and drop, because you're dragged and you're dropped out of sight, out of mind, and you move on. That's not right, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm not saying this because we're in Kerala. I mean it. You know, I could be saying this in Delhi, and I have. I speak to business schools, business lawyers, corporate lawyers, and I wear pinstripe shirts and a jacket and fancy shoes, and I go and speak the language of what might be called a bolshi. So be it. You know, we need to be talking about these things. So I think Beyond the Patina for me has been always an engagement and a conversation with what our constitution says the country is, what we all tell ourselves that we need to be engaging with is our country, Republic of India, the next great superpower. Bloody hell, show it. Walk the talk. Bring everybody with you. Carry everybody with you. I mean, what the hell are you doing with these schisms and niches and these aspects, whether it's with religion or, you know, ethno-political aspects or development or labeling people urban Naxals or whatever you want, or anti-national. What the hell, I ask you, somebody in this audience tell me, what on earth is an anti-national? I don't know. Or anti-national, as we say it in northern India. Nobody knows. It's a label. Urban Naxal, I'm supposed to be one. I have no clue what that means. I know what Naxals think that they do. They don't even call themselves Naxal. They call themselves communists or Maoists. No Naxal will call themselves a Naxal. So what the hell is a Naxal? And therefore, what the hell is an urban Naxal? I don't know. Sorry, I get very worked up with these things. And I think I should relinquish the microphone at this point of time, because I would like Sidharth to take the conversation to other avenues of Beyond the Patina. And this is decidedly not an anti-national panel or a Vidrohi panel. I think we are an Indian panel. And this gentleman does not need an 11 sedition case. It's a freaking circus what this gentleman has to go through. Sorry, I get very worked up with this.
Thank you, sir. So we were having a discussion about the title of the topic, India Beyond the Patina, inside the speaker's lounge, and one of the senior fellow speakers asked me, are you really speaking about, only speaking about what is beyond the patina, or are you speaking about something who can go beyond the patina, who can clear the patina? So there is always a difference between speaking about something and resolving something. And in our society, we have a section of, many sections of people who can actually go beyond the patina, who can actually take the whole society beyond the patina. We have a cross section of that. We have an artist with us, we have a poet, a writer with us, we have a media person with us, we have an academic historian with us. I am not classifying them into watertight compartments. I know that 3 of them are writers, 3 of them have their part in writing and all. Anyway, so coming back to Megha, as we know that writers and artists, films, art, artwork, literature, writers, artists, etc., always have the power, or they play a pivotal role in questioning the power structures of the society. They play a major role in rewriting the dominant narratives of society. So in that sense, coming to contemporary India, actually, to what extent do the writers and artists have the ability to go beyond the patina, and at the same time, are they being co-opted or are they being silenced during their creative expression? As a poet, please share your thoughts on that.
Sidharth, I think I believe that caring about the democratic and human rights of an oppressed community is not, it's never a heroic thing. No one's special for that. It should be the norm, but unfortunately, it's become the exception. Most people like to go by this term apolitical, which I have no idea what that means, because if you're there's no such thing as apolitical, is there? It just means that you're convenient in the system. It's serving you, so you choose to be quiet. But also, as an artist, I think making art or writing is a very deliberate choice to confront injustice, always has been a vehicle of resistance. So I think that is very important for writers, artists to all speak up and speak truth to power, like you said. But at the same time, I also see this big community of artists coming up who may even start capitalizing on a revolution, which I'm not a fan of. Just because I say that we must talk about injustice doesn't mean men get to suddenly write a poem from a woman's perspective about rape when RG Kar happens. So that's not what I mean. So yes, art definitely is a vehicle of change, and we've also seen that there's also a lot of bad art out there, and by that it's not coming from an elitist perspective. I think it's coming from a moral responsibility perspective. When I say bad art, I'll give you an example. Making propaganda art, right? Something very funny happened recently where a friend of mine from Delhi, she was like, Megha, can I please call you? I said, what happened? Why do you sound so scared? And I said, send me a voice note, because I was busy. She sent me a long voice note telling me that she watched the Kerala story. And she said, are you okay? Are you safe? I said, because I live in Trivandrum. So I said, what are you talking about? First of all, I've only heard about this movie. I've not watched it, and I never will, because I kind of have an idea of what's in it. I spent 1 hour explaining to her that it was a propaganda film, but the fear-mongering and the effect of fear-mongering was so obvious. By then, she was convinced that I was in danger of getting converted and all sorts of nonsense that sprouts from Islamophobia. So, yeah, bad art can have some serious consequences. So I think it's very important for all artists to have social and moral responsibility.
Yes, as she said, writing is a deliberate choice to confront the power. Writing is a deliberate choice to confront the power, and we have a person who has continuously confronted power through his writings. When, as the discussion organically moves from propaganda to a media person, media is supposed to be the fourth pillar of democracy, who should make the power accountable in a democratic society. But as we know, we live in the age of post-truth, we live in the age of paid news, corporatization of media, and we are from Kerala, where we have a history of questioning the power structures through the media. We have several media persons who, some of them we know, some of the very rarely celebrated names we have forgotten. And we have Vinod sir with us. I think he will speak about the history of media itself. I think I have heard your interview where you speak that actually the narrative that the Indian media before independence was nationalistic is actually something that is created, because the Indian media before independence failed to capture. Only some of the media captured the harsh realities of famines and all. So we'll move on to a journalist who has always fought with the power structures of our society. And sir, I would like you to speak on how the media can actually question the dominant narratives of the society, and at the same time I would also like you to comment on the fact that media is contributing to the construction of such patina above the real India.
Thank you. Yeah, I think theoretically, and as all of us understand, media is supposed to hold power accountable, hold a mirror to people in power, hold a mirror to the society. And there are societies that probably may have done it better than India, but in Indian context, maybe if we just throw some of the examples, as you said, Sidharth, I don't really believe that we had a rosy press really early on before independence. There was a segment of the press, the little magazines, those small publications, who were doing fantastic work. But you look at even a tragedy like Bengal famine. How many people were killed? 2 million, 3 million? 3 million people. 3 million people were killed, and then there were accounts of journalists walking over dead bodies and still not writing about it. It took 4 or 5 months for them to write about it. This is British India. The Penya traders were stocking up rice and grains for the British. Maybe the business establishment had an interest there. That spilled over to the publishing owners. Whatever, we can't understand or think through their mind why they did not cover the Bengal famine the way they should have covered. You then have a tendency where press freedom is incrementally given, where now in the hindsight we understand when the RSS or the BJP is in the opposition, media owners behave in a certain way, and the investigative journalists are given more freedom, they are being respected more. There is also strength, there's also sort of the support from the owners. I mean, you can name any of the big media houses. And in fact, I was a direct beneficiary of their compromise in some sense. Most of the big caravan stories that we did were stories which were killed in the Indian Express and the Hindu and many of the big national news organizations, even if the Judge Loya's case or Rafael scam or Amit Shah's son's son having this big bank thing, and National Security Advisor Ajit Doval's son opening a company in Cayman Islands, a tax haven, or Yediyurappa Diary. You name any of the stories. Most of the stories, I knew the route it was taking, and many of my senior colleagues in the profession said no to those stories. Not because those stories were not good, but because those stories were too good, that they could not publish it. So we have had a system where the same publications in the 1980s would behave differently. When it was Bofo scam, it was very different. Indian Express, for instance, again, regarded as one of the best newspapers that India has always, had. But there is a certain kind of falsehood that we also propagate as journalists, but also the newspaper starts. And I think Indian Express, not so much the new Indian Express that we get in South India, but the Indian Express in North India, I think it publishes a lie every day. It probably is the only newspaper that publishes a lie every day. That it says that it is founded by Ramnath Goenka. But Ramnath Goenka was the third owner. It was started by a trade union person, Sadanand, and then it went to somebody else's hand. I don't recall the names, but then Ramnath Goenka was the financier. He financed the poor journalists who could not run the newspaper in the 1930s and 40s, and it gradually slipped into his hands. Of course, he may have picked up the identity of being a publisher, editor, and owner to the taste of all of us. But just that there is a disingenuity in the way the capital has moved into Indian press to begin with. The capital came as moneylenders' capital. The capital then therefore expected a certain kind of growth, certain kind of comfort. And in fact, another former editor of Indian Express, T.J.S. George, he has published a book which I don't think is in the market. It's called The Goenka Letters. It just exposes the backdoor negotiations that Goenka had with Indira Gandhi during the emergency. So on the one hand, you have a heroic image that gets built by some of these people, but on the other hand, there were people who were in the wrong with the nationalization of mines, with the nationalization of banks, the stoppaging of privy purses. So many of the interests in the 1970s and 1980s gave strength and confidence to many of the journalists and the publications to go after a certain establishment which was in power then. Now, they are beneficiaries of the current system, so they certainly don't give the power and the strength and the confidence to their publishers and editors and the good reporters to go after the current government. So this hypocrisy is very evident and inherent in the system. And then there is another hypocrisy in the media, which is of lack of representation. We tend to favor more urban, educated, more city-centric, more. There are studies which shows to this effect. There is a highly concentrated imbalance in terms of the caste representation, in terms of the gender representation, in terms of the religious representation in the making of most of the newsrooms. Now, that's something that most democracies also went through. ASNE, American Society of News Editors, for instance, this is something that was considered as a huge problem in American press, by 1950s, 1960s. At least the representation question over the years got, somewhat solved, I would say, going by the numbers. Qualitatively, we don't know, but quantitatively it shows. But we really this is not even a discussion point. When I was working in Delhi, and my 25 years was mostly in Delhi and New York with Public Radio and Caravan and some of these organizations, with the industry bodies that you get to be part of and then discuss, I often found that if you make this even a reference to ASNE or how America has handled it or why we should do this, there is no support. I mean, forget about support. Rather, people would say that, okay, you're creating trouble, you're bringing in reservation to the media. There are these very lauded things that would keep coming on your way. I mean, all we are asking is representation of diversity and how diverse this country is. And that diversity has to come into news media. And then if it doesn't, then of course that's another problem. First is the ownership and the capital issue. Second is the making of the newsroom, that one. And so we could probably go on in detail on the many aspects of what causes the lack of democracy within the newsroom. That gets covered in the regular random reporting. Just that I remember the day that Judge Lawyer story was getting broken, and this is Amit Shah, the main person in the story. I mean, there's a case against this is the judge who is hearing the matter, and then he is mysteriously dying. And that day, the Times of India, when we have a series of investigation, the biggest story in Times of India is that Amit Shah has employed a tutor to teach him Tamil and Bangla. Not that he has learned. He's considering, employing tutors. I mean, I don't think he has picked up Bangla or Tamil over the years. But this is the kind of PR news that would come when you have maybe the biggest investigative story on those days out on a certain political leader. So this thinking is very inherent in the media, both from the owner side, from the capital side, and from the making of the journalist side by and large. I'm sure that I'm not saying that all journalists are doing it with their conscience, right? I mean, there are many journalists I know who suffer through this. They have EMIs to pay, they have to send their children to school, so they stick along, they have to carry along. It's not with their conscience that probably their newspapers do this, but then this is a reality where Indian media is, and that's why we have 140, 142 in the press freedom rank, really slipped away from 78 or something that we had 15 years ago.
Yes, so we are also hearing about the Indian media beyond the patina of freedom of expression. And now we'll have a continuity of this because we have a journalist who later became an author and a teacher. So specifically coming to your work, sir, as an author who has extensively wrote on the history, we live in a particular juncture in the history of India where history is being deliberately rewritten for the purpose of erasing marginalized narratives, for the purpose of editing the collective memory of the society, for establishing the power of certain sections of the for establishing the power for certain elite sections of the society. So in this particular age where history is being rewritten, what is the relevance of reimagining history, sir?
Well, I think I'll just put a little water on that theory. Since you've described me as a former journalist and now an author, in my heart and soul, I remain a journalist, huh, Vinod? By the way, he's just got sedition number 11, 12, and 13. Well done. We're proud of you. And we'll take up crowdfunding for Megha as well, because she's some magic words. Well done. Proud of you. As you speak of history, let me just state very, very categorically that history has always been written for a particular purpose, and it's been rewritten as well, since as long as history has been written and rewritten. So that aspect is not new. As we know, early histories were hagiographic histories, the histories of kings and emperors and so on and so forth. So is that written history, because that's what comes to us? Or history of godhood that comes to us? Is that history, or is that already history being rewritten, even as history is being written? You understand what I'm saying? Because reality is being rewritten in that particular sense to present a certain perspective. And I think that has simply become faster. That is just, the process has become faster. I'll give you an example. Since you mentioned that I write history, I wrote some years ago a book on the Battle of Plassey, which I find a defining battle. One of the reasons is why we speak in English and not in French or in Marathi, or possibly not in Persian with each other. We speak in English on account of that being a primary battle that led us to who we are today. A bunch of brown sahibs. Don't quote me on that. And brown sahibas as well. So the short point is that when I was working on that history, it was a very deliberate exercise on my part to revisit the Battle of Plassey and take the patina away from the colonial telling of the Battle of Plassey, the white man's burden, if you will, because the East India Company had to come in and rescue Indians from themselves. And then you had the Indian nationalist perspective of the Battle of Plassey, or poor Siraj-ud-Dowlah. Then you had the Indian Hindu Bengali spin on Plassey. Then you had the Bengali Muslim spin on Plassey. Everyone was taking Plassey like it was Rashomon. And that's what history is, ladies and gentlemen. It's an exercise in that, Akira Kurosawa gave us the movie, but we know that it existed for the longest time. History is Rashomon, as you make it, as you perceive it. So my chosen role for that book was to address the mythology of the Battle of Plassey, for instance, and take away these myths, like Clive, the Lion of Bengal, Clive of India. Rubbish, the poor boy almost died on his way to India. And then, it was a matter of accident. The way his character was built up, the way Siraj-ud-Dowlah was trashed on the account of one Frenchman who Siraj didn't sign a deal for, that Siraj-ud-Dowlah and the East India Company always fought. Rubbish. When he came from Murshidabad to Hooghly, when he was declared heir of the Masnad of Bengal, East India Company sent him robes of gold, money, and God knows clocks and candlesticks and diamonds and whatever. In turn, he gifted the East India Company directors robes of honor and a couple of elephants and a horse. There's a lot of rubbish that history is all about as well. And just to sort of establish that particular point. So yes, I try to rewrite a rewritten history, if you will. So in fact, to the extent that it is possible, as a chronicler, as a journalist, as a free thinker, we claim the space that we believe is being lost to what we think are appropriate narratives or current narratives. We too are biased, even as we accuse the other person of being biased about the histories that they're writing or rewriting, right? We have our own little biases as well. So, but what is truly dangerous these days, ladies and gentlemen, is that history is being rewritten even as that history happens. So there is a riot that takes place, there is a distress that happens, there is a flood that happens, there is a meltdown in Bangladesh that happens. And I was there last year because I was teaching at a liberal arts university in Dhaka when it blew up. My God, my earliest silly joke, which I cracked at the beginning of the session, I thought the axis of the earth would change. There was so much spin on what was reality. So the danger now we face is because of social media and because of the quickness of history and the quickness of news, is that even as an event is happening, when a vested interest or a party in power or party out of power or somebody just affected or not, or simply a chronicler, when they present a tweet, I refuse to call it X. So a tweet or a thread or a Facebook post or an Instagram post or whatever you made, a WhatsApp University has come to its own because of the rewriting of history. Our uncles and aunties are the rewriters of history. Just imagine, your family WhatsApp groups are rewriting history. I mean, how low can we go? Very low, evidently, right? So we have taken the rewriting of history into our hands. Instead of the pundits and the historians, we are now citizen rewriters of history. Every damn citizen is writing and rewriting history on the go, on the ball, within milliseconds of it. How quickly can you get it out there? That, ladies and gentlemen, is truly dangerous. And I don't know how to go about it, maybe with a counterpush, a counterpunch, if you will, by doing the kind of work that Megha does, the kind of work that Vinod's been doing for so many years, the kind of work that I've tried to do in my own way, the kind of work Sidharth is building up to, and he'll be sedition #1 soon, I think, and good for you with that as well. All blessings, young man. All power to you. But jokes apart, this is the reality we live in. So I think we need to own up to the fact that we are a part of the problem. And it is up to us, how do we, in our own way, address that writing of what we think is the correct history, not out of anger and not out of the lies that we've been fed, but maybe out of outrage for being fed the lies, that we are driven to push back, and that we at least have some audience in this session instead of the 5 that we started out with, gives me hope that maybe there are good rewriters of history in this very audience. So good luck to all of us.
Thank you, sir. Now, taking up the aspect of diversity and representation that Vinod sir was speaking about in the media, let's put that in a more wider frame, more wider social aspect of that. And my question is to Megha, because we are facing so many kind of systemic discriminations within India. We face discrimination based on caste, we face discrimination on religion, discrimination based on the economic class and gender. So we'll come to the gender paradox of India, because we are symbolically celebrating women empowerment through Nari Shakti Vandan Abhiyan. At the same time, we are facing systemic exclusions, like systemic exclusion and systemic gender-based violence of patriarchy, like sexual violence, discriminations, exclusions from public and from the glass ceilings in corporate world, etc. So how do you look up to the gender paradox of India beyond the patina of Nari Shakti?
I think that while bills and policies are great, there is a certain aspect of tokenism to it. Reserving 33% of seats for women in the Lok Sabha and legislative assemblies is all great, but at the same time, we need to also contextualize it. We need to think about the environment that's placed in. You can create a lot of spaces for us, but are these spaces still safe? I think that's the more important question. Even when we are talking about having representation for the queer community, right? So I remember Ananya Kumar Alex was the first transgender candidate for the Kerala assembly polls who was supposed to, but she had to pull back her candidature because of party discrimination. And the same year, she was also found dead. So I think when it comes to holding space, it's very important to make sure that once someone gets that space, it's a safe space, which is not, it barely happens. You can reserve a seat for someone, but what about the other people who have a seat there? Are they going to heckle you into giving up that seat? So these things are very important to make sure that you offer or create a safe space for people from the queer community or women, and also to get rid of that hero complex. I think you were speaking about white man's burden, right? And when you said that, I was also thinking about the hero complex, which I think I see a lot of this in movies, where the hero will fight the villains so that he can protect the woman's honor. Why? Can't women speak for themselves? Why must you say that, okay, I'm going to be the representative who's going to hold space for women? Because I do remember this was the speech given. God has appointed me to, reserve these seats for women. And I think a lot of people in power do that. So to first get rid of the hero or savior complex and to treat everyone as equals. And when I was working, when I was shadowing the Aravani Art Project in Bangalore, this was what they told me. The trans women, they told me that in all of Bangalore, we have one public washroom. That's it. And when you listen to these kind of stories, you think representation, sure, you may be helping 2-3 people and that's it. You may be putting them in positions of power. But what about everybody else? Because despite representation, trans people don't have a washroom. They don't have public washrooms. They're being treated badly. I still hear stories of being sexually abused on public transport. So make these public spaces safe for them. Make public spaces safe for women, for trans people, for the queer community. And that's where we start. Everything else, good, but so much of it does feel like tokenism.
Combining two perspectives. One is regarding what Megha has just said about access to public spaces for the queer communities across the world. But in Kerala, we have a college in Ernakulam called Maharajas who always open its doors for the queer community, and they are constantly being trolled in social media platforms for their openness to queer communities by different sections of the people in the social media. And also Sudeep sir was speaking about WhatsApp University. So WhatsApp and Instagram, we see that once used as a channel of channel to propagate progressive ideas, is now being a watchdog of retrograde tendencies in social media. So my question, coming back to Vinod sir, a decade back we had an optimistic viewpoint about the growth of social media as an independent space, as a public sphere where we can express our own opinions, and which could cater for the progress of the society. But now, with the entry of artificial intelligence, surveillance capitalism, and big data capitalism, it has become a place where it has become a tool of political manipulation. So how do you see the future of media, especially digital and social media?
See, technology certainly is a double-edged sword, right? It gives us the opportunity on the one hand. It was, let's say, 15 years ago, Facebook and Twitter would come into newsrooms, and even the newspaper folks would be very happy to take to the platform, because that would just be a very good distribution network that would take the stories to places where, you know, your traditional methods of distribution wouldn't. You know, and very quickly, I think that honeymoon period just ran out, and I remember one of the first things that, from a very personal point of view for me, was that I think there was this back-to-back 2 nights we are putting a story on Amit Shah's son's bank details to bed, and then I went home, and then you know, I got a call from my social media person just as I was just trying to get some sleep. So he was like, you know, Vinod, there is something very strange. Facebook is not letting us publish the story, and they're just, you know. So I was like, okay, maybe just try. There is some internal complaints thing within Facebook. Just try it. So to cut the story short, I think, you know, I had to put a reporter on the story. Got it escalated all the way to Facebook in the US, and then finally, you know, like some things to happen. But that was 2015, I think. But then now I think it's an established fact how most of these companies react. And this is even Twitter, for instance. They blocked a blue-ticked caravan account for an entire day. And this is before even Elon Musk has taken it over. This is the Twitter tweet, so-called more liberal you know, company. They were under the pressure from the government, and they, you know, they took us out. But it helped in a different sense, you know, because of course, that's where I say that the technology is a double-edged sword. We immediately got onto the other platforms, went into our direct subscription mails, and used those 8 hours as Twitter is, you know, blocking us, and then give us the money, give us the subscription money, and I think we raised more than 1 crore in a matter of few hours or something like that. And it was probably just the quickest fundraising that we had. So I think, you know, we have an opportunity with technology where we know that most of the big tech companies, you know, would be going with, look at the picture of Trump swearing in, right? Just the layer behind him stood the Apple CEO, the you know, Google CEO, Microsoft CEO, Amazon CEO, everybody, you name it, you know, they were all right there. And what was the first decision that Zuckerberg did after Trump, you know, moved to Washington? He said he is letting go of the fact-checking, which got inbuilt into Facebook after the backlash that Facebook received in the 2016 election, or after Biden came to power in 2020. Right? So he's just letting that go because he knows now there is a new power center in Washington, and then he doesn't want this, you know, 3 billion user company, Facebook, to sort of be in the wrong side in history for his business. So while don't trust the companies, but technology is great, because the companies would disappoint you, companies would have their IPO targets and this and that to meet, but the dark web to whatnot, that, you know, you would have engineers and technicians who will find a way to circumvent and get things to people. And I think that's where I think the subversive power of technology we will probably see as time passes, because there is more concentration of autocracy, so the subversive power with technology will emerge.
did you have a specific avenue you wanted me to address, or can I riff off from
No,
Vinod?
you can address, because I'm running out of words
All
to
right.
ask question to Sudeep sir, because he has asked me not to use certain words like neoliberal,
Yeah,
hegemony.
neoliberalism, neocon, neoliberal, othering, gays. I banned Sidharth from saying these words.
So-
These are tropes, and these are like very tired phrases now.
So I am running out of words, and I make this open for you.
My friends, Kerala has gained the sun because nobody is going to give Vinod a job in Delhi or Washington. He will remain forever in Wayanad, where he's chosen to be. So I'm very happy. And
I think he likes Wayanad.
yeah, and I think young Megha, the way you're going, Kerala would have gained a daughter as well. So, it's a homecoming. Call it homecoming. But I'm absolutely on that score, and I really don't have much to say except agree with Vinod in this particular case, and agree with a lot of what Megha has been saying, and the points that Sidharth has been saying. I don't know how to kind of, maybe when we throw this open to all of you, and when we have a little interaction with the house, maybe there'll be more points or more concerns that could be raised. But I would sort of second that by saying that this is a very cynical space, and we are aware of it. It's just that we don't articulate it often enough. Vinod spoke about Facebook getting rid of its fact-checking unit. The whole reason why Facebook even decided to have a fact-checking unit in the first place was to counter the narrative that it was being untruthful, and it was inherently an untruthful, manipulative platform. And that is why it decided to have a fact-checking unit in place. And there's a story from last year when I was in Bangladesh, at this university. My university, the University of Liberal Arts Bangladesh, where I was teaching, had actually a Facebook project which the university had got. So there was a university-led fact-checking unit. It had got a Facebook grant. And I would keep telling my vice-chancellor, who saw the light after Biden's candidacy went to wane, started waning and so on and so forth, I should say, Imran Bhai, isn't there a contradiction in terms where in the milieu that Facebook operates, or X operates, or Y or Z operates, you actually have an abomination, ironical abomination called a Facebook fact-checking project or a Facebook fact-checking unit, where you're fact-checking everything on Facebook except Facebook. I mean, how ridiculous does that get to be? And we laud this project. We laud this convoluted corporate social irresponsibility, in my opinion. And that's a phrase that I love as well. I would urge you to drop the gaze on the other and use these newer words till they begin to get stale as well.
I think we can open the session for audience for the questions.
So how much concerned we should be about the new social media? I mean, using the social media, the influencer culture to propagate the right-wing propaganda. Like when I open my Instagram, it is full of Kumbh Mela things and the influencers praising the right-wing politicians. So I think it is a massive source to reach the youngsters. So how much concerned we should be about that?
Very briefly, we should be very concerned. Personally speaking, I'm as appalled by this attempt to sort of influence youngsters, or even oldsters, by the way. Let's not forget that it's not just the young that are being swayed. It's the adult, the middle-aged, and the elderly who are also being swayed, and quite willfully. So personally speaking, I'm equally appalled by this right-wing swing, if you will, by an influencer peddling me pan with gold leaf in it, or posing with some horrendous fabric in the backdrop of the Himalaya. I'm appalled by this whole aspect of influencer. The fact that you even have a profession called to be an influencer, or I'm an influencer, if that's how you describe yourself, I think is precisely the kind of issues and problems that this panel is trying to address, and many other panels in this wonderful festival, and I'm sure you too. So I think I wouldn't just put everything on the right-wingers or the alt-right. They are capitalizing, and I use that word capitalizing advisedly, they're leveraging a ready opportunity. Like you will hear, and I had a scrap, but 3 Mathrubhumi festivals ago with a right-winger under the tree over there, across over there, when this lady called Subrashta, see I've taken her name and sedition case against me, said that it's game, everything is fair in politics, and she celebrated the culture of what she articulated that afternoon as total politics. Those who are equipped for this game of total politics by leveraging every available resource, every available law, making law lawless if it needs be. That is where we are at. So I think it's a leverage that people use, an opportunity. It's up to us to use the similar. If people are using the leverage for total politics and total untruths, we too can use those very mediums for what we perceive to be total truth. It doesn't stop us. Why do we have to step back? So more power to you, madam.
See, one other question. See, we are now, positioned to be a 5 trillion plus economy, probably going to be the 3rd biggest economy in the world.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were at 3 trillion. Have we gone up now to 5?
Okay.
I mean, the ambition, has it been escalated to 5? Or is it 7? I'm not sure.
And I think I read somewhere it's going to be a 5 million plus. It's probably an ambitious one. And also we are going to be the 3rd largest economy in the world in sometime soon. Do you think there is this Patina somehow kind of holding us back in any way, or are there things we need to do to break out of this and then achieve this? Is it by any way constraining us?
Yes. I mean, Vinod, yes, because I just today I was reading a statistic by an economist that said that rates of growth and 3rd largest economy in PPP terms, purchasing power parity terms, and so on and so forth. But what about the disconnect? So are we this grand superpower that we claim to be? Yes, fine. $3 trillion, super. $5 trillion, excellent. 7 trillion, wonderful. How much of that $5 or $7 trillion will come to you, come to each of us? How much of that? How much of that distribution of income that we show off in statistical terms will actually be redistributed within the economy to all 1.4 billion Indians, or not all, at least some amount of it? We're still waiting for 15 lakhs. What are we talking about, a $5 trillion economy? So I think it is a good ambition. Ambition is terrific. We need ambition to get somewhere. I think we need margdarshaks. See, I'm on the right side, I'm on the side of the angels. We need margdarshaks. We need margs to be delineated for us. But how do we distribute that wealth among all of us? And that's not a communist principle. That's an American principle. That's a principle of money and wealth and income and aspiration and ambition. So yes, we may have $3 or $5 trillion. I can guarantee you that without a sense of equity, without a sense of participation in the economy, without a sense of there being a lack of jobless growth, and so on and so forth, these statistics will mean nothing, and we will still have people, Dalits, being burnt and killed. We will still have the Maoist issue by another name. We will still have Northeastern India imploding. We will still be talking about majoritarianism without realizing that the biggest vote bank is the majoritarian vote bank, and we will still continue to be misled by the minority vote bank. All this will continue, sir, till I think we elevate ourselves to a sense of equity and purpose.